Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. I am Jeanne Gallagher, and I'm here with Denise DeGaulle. Hey, Denise.
Hello, hello.
And we're going to be talking about having a plan. Is that correct?
Yes. We are talking, we've been talking about, um, we're now well into the first part of the year, but we're still talking about resolutions and creating, that theme for the year. And so, we've got this theme, this overarching theme. That's great. What are you going to do with it? Right? So we do need to step back and create a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Why? A plan transforms a resolution into a roadmap. And let's be real. I mean, granted, it's not necessarily a paper roadmap anymore, though I do still have an atlas upstairs. If we're driving someplace, we need to know how to get from point A to point B. One, you need to know where you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your theme or the theme for the year. But where do you want to go with this theme? Right. And so you can have, where you are, where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know exactly where you want to go, that's some time to, maybe take a little bit of time to write some of those things down, journal about it. What is it that I want to accomplish with my idea of impact? How do I want to impact people? Right? How would I know that I have achieved that? What are those three things? And I always recommend three, no more than three, right? Your brain can't think of more than three, right? So I think that's really important. So you have where you are today, where you want to go. How are you going to get there? You need to have a plan. You need that roadmap. And what I think is always interesting is people like, I don't know where to start. You have to start somewhere, right? They always say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with that one step. And that one step can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. It could be the smallest little thing. So impact for me, I want to impact people in a different way. I have up-leveled the conversations I want to have with people, one with you here on Discover Rising Tides, but also on my podcast, right? I know what I used to talk about, but now how do I raise it to that next level? And I'll be honest, the other day I was kind of not solely vacillating. I was procrastinating. I knew I needed to record a couple of podcasts. I've written them. I know what I want to talk about, but why was I like procrastinating? It's that first little step. It's scary, but you know what? Once I started recording, it was me and the camera and just blah, 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 which I can do pretty well.
It is, but you're right. It is that first initial. I find that's a really great analogy for everything. I find that with my to-do list. When I start my to-do list, I look at it because I've set it up the day before. So when I know that what I'm going to do is written on paper and I know, and it's numbered, I know where I'm going to start. It kind of happened this morning. I looked at it, I'm like, I don't really want to do any of that. So I have to pick something that I want to do to get me started. It's like that warm-up round. And then once I get into a groove, then I'm good. But
Yeah.
but you notice that with anything, whether it's exercise or changing your eating habits or anything that we're talking about, it's that first initial start that's hard.
Yeah. And think about it, they could be that start could be the simplest thing. So you want to lose weight, feel better, drink a glass of water, 8 ounces of water the first thing you wake up in the morning. Do you know how many people are dehydrated all day long because they don't drink enough water?
Mm.
Like 90% of people.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, that's crazy. All you need to do, start your day on the right, that right foot. When you get out of bed, 8 ounces of water. You'll actually notice how different you feel. And was that really hard? It's not really hard. It's just a matter of, like you said, like we're saying, just taking that first step. Um, and I think, I always talk about, the plan, prepare, right? And prioritize. Prioritize and then prepare. So this is just something that we need to go back to and, prioritize. What are the 3 things that we want to accomplish, and how are we going to do that?
I like
That
that. And
is,
I think 3 things makes it simple, because when you're thinking about changing your habits and your patterns, that is so broad and it's so overwhelming, but you really have to identify it and simplify it.
yes. I think, one of the other reasons why I don't love this concept of the resolution, and I like the theme, because resolutions focus on fixing something that's not right, something that's broken, something that's wrong, right? This concept of the theme and taking the steps to get to from point A to point B in December of 2025, right? Because it's a yearly theme, unless you decide to do it quarterly. I have a client who's doing that. It's really about growth, opportunity, and fulfillment. And for so many women in midlife, we are struggling with the fulfillment piece because we're taking care of everybody else. We're doing all of these other things. Now we just have these 3 things that we're going to work on for us, whatever they are, right? So it's not about fixing you. You're not broken. It's just about growing. It's about doing something a little different. Maybe it's healthier habits. Maybe it's setting better boundaries for you. Whatever resonates with you, that's going to make you feel fulfilled, feel like you have purpose, and really have control of your life. And that is really, to me, is kind of the bottom line, is feeling like you're in control. So build some habits that align with your values and your theme for the year. And we'll see where we go.
Wonderful. And transform that resolution to a roadmap.
Yes.
Thanks, Denise.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Jeanne Gallagher, Discover Rising Tides, and I want to just take a moment to talk about my friend, Denise Stegall. I am honored to call her as a friend, and I'm so grateful that she gives us her insight during our shows, each show, and talks about healthy living, eating real food. You hear Denise say, eat real food a lot. Well, she means it, and she knows what she's talking about. She is an amazing healthy living coach, curator at Living Healthy List. And if you ever have any questions about what is real food, why does it matter? How does that apply to me? How do I change? What do I need to do? How do I even create a healthy living shopping list? Make sure that you call her. She is your healthy living coach, and you can find her at healthylivinglist.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. My name is Jeanne Gallagher, and I am very excited to introduce to you all Kate Tredway. Kate, thank you so much for being with us today. And before we get started, I'd like you to give a little bit of your bio, and then we can really dig in.
Certainly. Thank you for having me, Jeanne. I'm very, very excited to be here today. My name is Kate, and a little bit about me. I am fortunate enough to be in a role where I am able to enjoy the outdoors, both professionally and personally. So I am a chief of staff at Onyx Maps. We are a mapping company. We make apps to help our outdoor adventurers get home safely, do their activity, plan their activity, and have an all-around great time while they're out there. Our mission is to awaken the adventure inside everyone. The other part of what I do is also very much connected to that, this belief of wanting to get more folks outdoors, enjoying nature, and spending more time outdoors. And so the other part of what I do, kind of my side hustle, my non-profession profession, is I am a forest bathing guide. I've been certified with the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. You might hear me call that today ANFT. And I have been a guide with them for over a year now. I also guide with a company or with an organization called Cascadia Forest Therapy. So that's just a little bit about me.
So much to talk about, so much. So let's do this a little bit in stages, and let's touch on Onyx first, because what a great resource. I know that even before we talked, I've used it in the past, and it can be used for many different activities as well. So can you give us a rundown so listeners can say, gee, I wonder what that is and how can it benefit me?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are somebody that is curious about getting out in nature, or you are a hardcore adventurer,
Mhm,
I would highly recommend it. We have different apps primarily for hunters, for off-roaders.
mhm,
So whether you snowmobile or you're out on your side-by-side, or backcountry enthusiasts, so human-powered folks, we have an app for you. A lot of folks use us primarily for doing their planning. So they want to figure out, where do they go? How can I ensure that I've got the right route to accomplish my adventure, whether it's hunting or backcountry or off-road. And as I mentioned before, I think probably one of the most important things is being able to succeed in your adventure. So you've got the right planning, you know where to go, and then to get home safely. We have millions of active users across our apps. But I tell folks, if you're just curious, I want to go for a hike, I want to know where I should go.
mhm.
This is a great one to use, especially while you're in field. I think that's probably where we're a little bit different than a lot of the other
Mhm.
apps, is that you know where you're at all the time, which is particularly important for hunters. So
Mhm.
they know which lands that they're on, whether it's private or public lands.
Yeah. So in my little 7 acres in Maine,
Yeah.
out behind our house, we have snowmobile trails that are managed by a little tiny snowmobile club within town. And I was thinking, well, I wonder if they're listed on here. And lo and behold, I pulled out the app while we're out in the woods, and there they were. It was really fun to see that the small town Maine piece still visible on that map, and hunting in Maine as well as many other states is very can be a very remote activity. So having that tool in your on your phone is incredibly important,
That's
as well
exactly
as
right.
hiking, etc. And
Yeah.
and being prepared. And I'm not going to go down to I'd love to spend an hour talking to you about activities, but I'm going to leave it with, if you're going on an activity, please take the time to be prepared and do a little pre-work. If you're out hiking, make sure you have your 10 essentials. I like to toss an 11. There's always one extra that you need. And if you're out hunting, etc., or any snowmobiling or any off-road activity, take the time to be prepared, and then also let people know where you're going. Really important to tell your loved ones that, number one, you're out there, and number two, where the out there really is. So just take that time to do that. So tell us about as a chief of staff at Onyx. What was how long have you been there? What was your transition into that position, and how fortunate you are to be able to marry the professional, the corporate world, and it's okay to be outside at the same time.
Yeah, it is truly a dream job.
Such a
To be able,
privilege.
it's a privilege, and to really support a mission like that is pretty amazing. I have been with Onyx for just a little over 3.5 years. Prior to that, I was with Amazon for close to 15 years. So I've always been in the tech industry. And at one point I decided, although I loved working for Amazon, that it was time for me to find somewhere that matched a little bit more with
Mm,
my personal interests and passions. I took quite a bit of time. I actually worked with an executive coach to really
mhm,
figure out what does that look like, what's important to me, and discovered that technology is very important to me, which is interesting with the forest
mm,
bathing side of things. Technology, community, and then again something about the outdoors. As you can imagine, that's a pretty tight little Venn diagram to find something right
mm,
in the sweet spot. But I was lucky enough that I knew about this organization, the great work that they were doing, um, and through a former a woman that I really looked up to. I think at that point she was more of a mentor, or maybe even a
mhm,
sponsor for me. But I never worked directly with her. Anyway, she had transitioned over to be the CEO of the company. I watched and watched and watched for an opportunity to work at that company, and I found one. It wasn't exactly aligned with what I was interested in doing, but I thought a good way to get my foot in the door. and this is something I think I'm particularly proud about, is I was able to have an interview at the organization, and a job it was different than the one I was speaking to them about, but also different than the one that I wanted. Was offered to me, and gosh, it was very tempting to say yes just to get my foot in the door. But I recognized that that was not something that would help the company or help my customers or help me in the long run. And instead, I said, "Thanks, but it's not the job that I'm interested in." And
Hard thing to do.
yeah, very hard, because I desperately wanted to work for this company, desperately. And the person that I was interviewing with, he said, "Well, what are you interested in?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to be Laura's chief of staff." That's the CEO at the company. And he said, "Tell me more." And so I told him a little bit more, and it ended up a few other extra additional steps, but they ended up opening that role up, and I was able to apply for it
Wow.
and get it. Yeah. Yeah. But it was a tough one, right? Like, that was a moment for me where I had to, uh, I knew exactly what I wanted, and I thought, this is worth the risk. It's worth the risk to put it out there and to talk about it.
And in how brave and vulnerable it is to actually say, well, here's really what I want. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for the offer, but that isn't quite the fit that I'm looking for. And that is a unique position to be able to be comfortable enough with either yourself or your goals to voice, thank you. However, what about this?
Yep. Absolutely.
Mm. And so 3.5 years in,
Yeah. 3.5
and
years in. Still having so much fun in my time since we've been there. We've actually released another product, so now we have Onyx Fish. It's not available across the United States. We're launching it in the Midwest and South first, but it's been amazing to watch that product get released. It's also been quite, just a privilege to work with a company that has so much focus on land access and stewardship. And so we're very active in that as well, making sure that we're taking care of the lands that we recreate on, making sure that they're staying public and open for recreation. So it's just been an amazing journey to be on.
And that's an amazing challenge too, as property is being bought up by individuals, but also venture capitals, companies, and other high wealth um, people, but also organizations. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And sometimes when that happens, large pieces of land end up being closed or are closing in different aspects. And I don't know that people realize what goes into making sure that properties are available for us to use.
That's exactly correct. And it's very different depending on if you're on the West Coast or East Coast. The amount of public accessible land looks very different
Oh,
depending on
definitely.
where you're at. Yeah, we were very active this year with the administration, working through, well, not with the administration, but where there was a lot of public land disposal discussion coming about, and we were very active and engaging our customers and our communities that we recreate in to become more vocal in terms of what they were looking for.
That's great.
I
And
think,
then you can
yeah.
also be that voice or that push to make people more vocal about this is what we really need in order to maintain access to areas.
That's exactly right. I think we're in a very unique position at Onyx in that we do support both the human powered outdoor person, whether it's backcountry skiing or hiking, and we are also support our motorized adventurers as well. And sometimes people think that those two don't work together, but we're a spot that I think we can advocate on behalf of all adventurers, all people, outdoor enthusiasts that need to get out and be on land.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about the corporate culture, because I really want to, we talked about this in our chat beforehand, and I think it's important for people to realize that there are companies out there that want to take care of your mindset and give you access to what's going to make you a better employee when you're on the clock, and what you do off the clock directly affects that. But also the corporate mindset when you're at work really makes such a difference.
It is so true. Again, at Onyx, we have decided that getting outside and getting
Mhm.
active is core to our what we believe is important for employees' well-being and health. And also to, I think you love things, you take better care of things that you love. And
Mm.
so this notion of really getting outside and getting active. So we encourage and provide a couple of days each year for employees to get outside and do such things. We also provide volunteer hours as well. And I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed is we provide a day for stewardship where the entire organization, we are a geographically dispersed company, but the entire organization does get together and does different stewardship activities. I'm located in the Pacific Northwest and was able to work on helping daylight a stream in Seattle, Washington. Just had a great time with all of my fellow Onyxers, pulling out invasive weeds, getting the property ready for planting. And we even met a beaver detective and learned all about the benefits of beavers. So
They're
great
fantastic
time.
animals.
They are
But I didn't know
amazing
there was a
animals.
beaver detective, though.
There is a beaver detective. But it was, again, I think to have a strong culture, you have to support your people. And that is supporting us in all different ways of staying healthy and taking care of the areas that we love.
Mhm. Yeah, it is very important, and it's good to hear that a larger corporation still has the thought of they are only as good as the people that are showing up to represent the company, and that front line of representation, or the people that are doing the hard work in order to provide that product that the consumer is going to use. I think it's so important. But also, if you have people that are active and people that are interested in being active, and now they're working in an environment where they're producing something that's creating this roadmap for people, there's going to be some intention or love or interest that's baked in that you really can't feel, but it's
Yeah,
there.
I think there's that. I also am really proud to work with such with a group that is so authentic in what
Mm.
we do.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say that. Well, I love to be outdoors. There are people they're my fellow Onyxers that take it to a whole nother level. But I think one of the reasons that our products work so well and support our community so well is because we are the ones out there doing
Mhm.
those exact activities. And so that's just been something else that's been really amazing, is to work with such a company that is so authentic in
Mhm.
terms of the people that we have and the products that we're able to build and deliver to solve our customers' problems, because we know
Yeah,
what those problems are. Yeah.
that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
so as you've um, become part of this role, or the role has become part of you, whichever way you look at it. Quite often that happens when, especially where you're in more of an executive position. You've also been able to maintain that quality of life outside of work, which can be such a challenge when work, it's so easy for work to consume you and your hours and your mindset. And you've been able to balance both. How do you do that?
I am very regimented, might be a little strong of a word, but I have figured out that there are things that I absolutely need to do for myself
Mhm.
to make sure that I am getting that mental space and physical
Mhm.
relief. I
Mhm.
have a desk job, and so I need to make sure that I do such things. Obviously, getting out and going for runs and things like that, but I found forest bathing has really been kind of the big key for me, both in terms
Mhm.
of building a community and finding ways to give back to the community has been really important.
Well, let's talk about that. So, for people that aren't aware, and so I have to preface this. I know that it's been around. I want to get to the origins of it itself, and I know that it's been around for a long time. But honestly, I hadn't heard the phrase for until the last few years that it's come into more of a conversational piece. And when I first heard it, because I grew up I grew up in the woods. I grew up in Maine, and I never thought that people, and that naive piece of me is, doesn't everybody have a piece of woods in their yard? Because it
Right.
just seems so normal. And then I was thinking about it and learning about what this is even before you and I talked. And I realized that it's such a needed piece, and it is so important that it's becoming part of a conversation. So tell us a little bit about what is forest bathing, how did it start, where did it originate, and what really draws you into it?
Yeah, I want to say that forest bathing, you'll also hear it called forest therapy, has
Mhm.
been around for, I think it's, I would say that it's probably been around in one form or another with multiple different cultures for a long time. I think
Mhm.
in the Nordic countries, specifically in Norway, they've got their own version of getting outside and being with nature. In the United States and probably in Canada as well, Indigenous people have a
Mhm.
relationship with nature. But the form that we talk about forest bathing originated back in the late 70s, early 80s in Japan. During that time, there was a migration of Japanese leaving the rural prefectures and going more into the urban settings. And the Japanese government noticed something very interesting at that point, that they were starting to see a higher rate uh, of cancers, of levels of anxiety and stress, suicide rates. And my understanding, I'm not Japanese, but my understanding of the Japanese
Mhm.
culture is that it is one that is very connected with nature. If you think about their architecture, the architecture of rice paper, and how that actually doesn't really separate you from the outdoors as much as our closed glass doors in Western worlds, or the some of the tea ceremonies, or even the patterns and decorations, very, very connected with nature. So the government asked this very provocative question at the time and said, what would happen if people spent more time outside in nature?
Mm.
And they commissioned some studies, some research at the time, and found some very interesting things, that people that spent time in nature had lower levels of cortisol, better sleep, many different physiological and psychological benefits. And from
Mm.
there, it just kind of started to spread, and it has spread globally across. We just had a conference, and I think every continent was represented at this forest bathing
Interesting.
conference. Yeah.
What drew you in to it? Or how did you find it, first of all, and what drew you in?
Yeah, I found, well, let me say, similar to you, nature has always been very important to me. I
Mhm.
remember I couldn't have been more than 10 or 11. And I was having, it was a rough day, and there was this incredible storm outside. And for whatever reason, I felt like I needed to get outside and just be with it. And the strength and the power and the, in odd ways, support stuck with me. Just this
Mm.
feeling of being one. I also, as a kid, used to run through horse pastures and get in trouble for being out too long, but always just had this relationship. So it's always been something that's very important to me. But and then as an adult, I've done a lot of hiking. I volunteered for a wilderness for a ranger station out in Washington. But it's always been important to me. Back in it was before I was still working at Amazon, and I heard something about it. But at that point, um, I just heard this idea of forest bathing, and gosh, the word forest bathing is so exciting. I should preface this by saying, uh, forest bathing has nothing to do with with being outdoors naked or in your bathing
Right.
suit. I should probably preface that
There's no
forest
water
bathing
involved.
is, there's, well, there
Well, there
can be
could
a
be. There
time.
could be,
Yeah,
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 but it's not required. There's not a
yeah.
tub in the middle of the
That's
woods.
right. We haven't actually said what it is. We said where it came from, but it's this idea of getting out. in nature. And that can look we can talk about this later, but there's a huge spectrum of what that can actually mean. And really slowing down, paying attention what's around you, and taking it in with your different senses. So that's what it is. There's with I didn't say this as part of this study in Japan. They were curious. Well, why are we seeing these physiological things that we can actually measure? And what they found is that there is a chemical called phytoncides that well, all plants give off. It happens that in pine fir forests, you get more of that. So if you know that pine, that smell, that fresh piney scent, you are breathing in phytoncides. So it's this idea of, bathing in, it's almost like aromatherapy. So you're bathing in those senses. Anyway, I found it all fascinating. At that point, I was not ready for it. Talk about a busy career. I knew it wasn't time for me to step back. So I decided not to. And then one of the other benefits that I didn't mention at Onyx is they give you, there's a stipend for getting outside and adventuring. So you can use it for hiking boots or you can use it for coats. I decided to use it for a forest bathing certification, partially to help pay for that. And the timing was just right. I had a little bit of extra cash to help with that. I'd been in my role for long enough at Onyx that I felt like I could spend a little bit of time going back to school, getting my certification. So
That's
that happened, like
fantastic.
I said, about a year and a half ago.
Everything aligned like it was supposed to.
Yeah, it's kind of funny
When
how
it's supposed
life
to
works
happen,
like
it
that.
does that.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Pretty
Yeah,
much, it does.
yeah. I found that
Yeah.
too.
And so, what is the process? So when you're leading classes, right? And so, describe what the process is, or what does it really look like?
Yeah, it is. I would love to take you
And
out
look
on
at
it.
your face
Yeah.
light up. For those of you on YouTube, if you're just listening, you got to swing over to YouTube because your face just lit up. It's amazing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think about it and it brings me a lot of joy. When you were talking about being in Maine and growing up as a kid and you were just out in it and you enjoyed it, that is for me, that is what I experience. I instead of being an adult and looking at nature and seeing a beautiful mountain, but really all I care about is getting to the top or, and is seeing that vista and coming down. It's like being a kid again. It's like it's experiencing it with all of your senses. So with the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, if you decide that you'd like to take a walk with one of our guides, there's a fairly standard sequence that we do practice. We first begin by really a lot of embodiment. So we'll offer a series of invitations to help you slow down and to notice things through each of your senses. So how it feels through your body, what it sounds like, what it tastes like, what nature smells like. So all of these different things, really in an effort to get us to slow down. And then we will offer another invitation. And I use this word invitation very purposefully. When you're on a guided walk, it's whatever you want to make it. I, as a guide, will offer you different invitations to participate. If you feel like it, great. If your body calls you to do something else, that's fine too. But we'll also offer an invitation called Noticing What's in Motion. And that surprisingly can actually be one of the most difficult spots for people to participate, I've noticed. And what it is slowing down. And that slowing down means something different for all people, but very, very slowly walking and just noticing what's in motion around you. It could be the sky. If we're on a rainy walk, it could be watching individual raindrops come down. It might be watching a spider web move. But that can be a challenge. And then at the end, we'll offer a few more invitations. I work with the forest, and I let the forest inspire me in terms of what other invitations to offer. But maybe, for example, I might offer you to go find a tree and get to know that tree. And that might look like talking to the tree. It might look like touching the tree, might just be sitting next to the tree. And then we'll wrap it up with a spot where we have tea and snacks together. We may offer something back to the forest that supported us, and then we'll wrap it up. Generally, they're anywhere from, I'd say, 90 minutes to 3 hours, depending on who you're with, how much time you have. Yeah.
The slowing down piece is really difficult. Even I have challenges with it. I notice it when I hike, because when I hike, I go, but I don't slow down. And it is so important, because there are so many details that we're missing, and those details are really important in order to integrate into our mindset, or just integrate into our heart, in order to appreciate, realize, become one with, if you want to go that esoterically deep. But yes.
Yeah. There's, so many of us are moving so quickly and
Mhm.
paying so much attention to our phones or our screens.
Mm.
And this is an
And so
opportunity.
disconnected
And
from
and
everything.
oh,
Ugh. I
so
struggle with this too. So I'm not just, yeah, this is something that I struggle with a lot, because you realize that you are so disconnected. And even when you are outside, or, where was I? I was at the beach someplace, and there was a family of four. Oh, that's right. I was in Florida in the end of October. I couldn't remember where I was. I was in Florida at the end of October for a business convention that we have every year down there. And was on Fort Lauderdale area, and Hollywood, and I was on the beach, and there was this family of four, and they were all sitting between two beach, chairs things. Every single one, and they're looking at the ocean, and every single one of them was on their phones.
yeah.
And they're sitting in front of the water that most likely they paid to go on vacation to see. And they're all on their phones. And I'm like, this is it right here. This is everything that's wrong.
Yep. Yep. And I would also imagine that their brains were firing,
Hmm.
but not actually relaxing.
Hmm.
And I think that that's
Hmm.
another thing I think about when we were talking a little bit about how do I balance. One of the things with forest bathing, which I think is very, very important for me, at least, something that I get out of it um, is paying attention in a different way.
Mm.
There's a professor out of Chicago, Mark Berman, who's done a lot of work and research in this space. So we talked a little bit about the physiological effects. There are
Hmm.
also some other effects of getting out in nature in terms of better cognition, feeling not feeling feeling mentally drained. A lot
Hmm.
of people talk about that right now after being on the screens and paying so much attention. And what they're finding is that there's different ways to observe and take in information. So there's kind of this gentle, soft way of where you think about the difference, what your brain needs to do when you're in New York City. I think is an example that he's used. When you're in New York City, there's although you're not typing up an email, you still have to pay attention to what's around you. You got to know where the cab is, you got to know what the light is saying, you hear all the people selling you hot dogs or things like that. That doesn't let your mind relax, right? That it's not relaxing there. However, there's another kind of paying attention, and it's more of this gentle, soft way of taking things in, like being in nature and
Mm.
letting, while you're still paying attention, it's not that frenetic way
Yeah.
of being. So when you talk about going on your hike, I one of the key moments that I had in my training was you're encouraged to go out for kind of a solo day. I'm used to, like I said, trying to hit the summit. I got my
Hmm.
AirPods in. I'm going as fast as I can. I have my dog at my side. I'm on the trail and I'm going. Such a different experience to take out your AirPods,
Mm.
to go. Now, of course, you're safe. You know exactly, folks know when you need to be back, but a very different experience not to have the destination as, or the
Mm,
end spot as the destination, and really have the destination to just be noticing what's going on around you. Very different, and a very
mm,
different experience coming out of it feeling so energized and so awake and alive.
That's interesting. So the when you were explaining that, the one thing that came to me was I'm like 4 weeks from hip surgery.
Mm,
So I can't hike downhill. It hurts. I can hike uphill, but once there are things that once you do go up, there is some down that has to
yep.
happen. So I'm regulated to just road walking, and I live near some busy roads, and so I had my earpods and listening to something just to get rid of the traffic. And I was walking back, and there was a small little wooded trail next to where I live, and I was number one, I went too far for my hip. So I'm just kind of testing it. I wonder how far I can go. Okay, 7 miles is too far. And there's a reason I'm getting surgery. But I said, okay, you know what? I just I had to go there. And I had to get into the trees, and I had to take my earbuds out. And I had never felt this before, that need for quiet.
Yeah.
And I just slipped down there for a little while, knowing that I could go part of it that wouldn't create a downhill. And I felt like I got to get this thing out of my ear, and I've got to get in the quiet, and I have to get down there. And it was surprising to me, but realized that, well, I haven't been out in the woods for a while. I
Mm,
haven't been, because I usually don't hike with my earpods, and I haven't been in the woods because I can't. And
yeah.
I was amazed at that need for it was calling me.
Yeah.
I had no choice. Even though I was one uncomfortable because I'd already gone too far, and I was going to toss in another half a mile. And I'm like, well, what's a half a mile after you already heard? Let's
Well,
go.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah.
but yes,
So, right.
yes.
But I had to. I did not have a choice. It was, and I just felt, and then I felt like I need to be out here for another, I need to not, I, I couldn't stay any longer, but I needed to be there. And I really wish that I had started there, and I had the ability to continue in the woods where it was quiet.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand, well, and to listen to that voice. I would also say, one of the things that I have learned is that I don't have to be in a perfect environment to
Mhm.
nature bathe in nature. Many of us live in urban settings,
Mhm.
and what I have found as part of my practice, because this has really turned into a practice for me,
Mhm.
is that I eat, well, I won't always say rain or shine, but I try to get outside. There's a tree that I have found that I have made a connection with. And just sitting outside with that tree for 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. I live, or there's airplanes going over all the time, and that's okay. Just getting outside and being able to connect and hear the birds, hear the planes, and sitting with the tree has been enough for me. And I know, I think for other folks, there's a lot of folks that aren't mobile, that can't even get
Mhm.
outside. And a lot of the same effects, these are research backed studies, shows that you can bring those same things inside. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you can see, but I do have plants around me. My window, I can look outside and see trees around me. And there's even research that suggests even this notion of bringing in fake plants
Mm.
can actually help with some of these, with cognition, mood things. Playing sounds, the outdoor sounds can help as well. And even having some of the oils like the hiroki or the pine or firs can help as well.
That's interesting. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up, because I wanted to get into that. Not everybody has woods, fields, nature at their fingertips, and they are more in a urban setting. And it could be it could be a park, or it could be anything that's gives you that moment of pause and reflection, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of well, I shouldn't say that. They're all my favorites, but one walk that particularly sticks in my mind was I did a walk for a group of early Alzheimer's dementia
Mm,
patients and their heart partners. And I really, I really wanted this particular group, not that I don't want every group, but I really wanted this group to have an experience that meant something for them. But we chose to do it in a Seattle. I'm out in Seattle. We chose to do it in a park in Seattle with lots of cars, with kids on the playground having their fun, and yet we were still able to go through each of these sequences a little bit of a different format, right? Um,
mhm.
and folks were still able to connect with nature, and to kind of have this reciprocal relationship in terms of getting something from nature and also giving back. Yeah, you can
Yeah,
find it
there.
where you can find it
Oh,
everywhere.
funny.
Sorry.
That's really that no, that's really fantastic for that group, especially for that group of people where they're starting to lose touch with what's going on around them, and to have a piece of maybe something's going to touch them in a way you might not even realize how it did.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
there's communication that happens. So I was listening to the telepathy tapes series. I
Mm,
don't know if you're familiar with the podcast. And this most recent one that came out, they were talking about plants, and they talked with Paul Stamets and talking about psilocybins and how the communication. I saw this incredible. This is a tangent. This incredible video on, I don't know, the interweb someplace about attaching mushrooms to and in measuring their electronic communications. It was
yes.
phenomenal. But
Yes.
talking about how plants are communicating with each other, but how plants are also communicating with us if we're open to hear. And so that open to hear, I say loosely because we might not even be realizing that we are open for that communication. But if you're in amongst nature in any way and you're feeling this piece of something different, there could
Yeah.
be some of that communication and we don't even know where.
I think so. I have experienced that myself as well, and we do know, as you said, that trees are communicating with each other. There's been quite a bit of research, as you
Mm,
mentioned, around things where a tree that will have some bugs attacking it,
hmm
a couple of acres off, and yet trees will know. Now they don't exactly know how this is happening, but the trees further up will respond in a protective way.
hmm
So absolutely, I think, and the other thing is we've been part of nature for 99.9999% of we are nature of our
hmm
history, right? Like it's just more of this recent things where we've stepped further. Some cultures have stepped further away from kind of the rhythms and the listening, to what nature can teach us, whether it's
And I
animals,
think that we're
plants, or
grasping,
water.
we're grasping for that because we're moving so far away with electronics and AI and all of that. And I think that we're all what we're seeing is these terms keep coming up with us. Oh, I hadn't heard that before, but I've heard it a lot lately. Kind of a thought process. I think that that's all of us grasping for that return to nature. And and you've kind of answered this in the conversation, but I wanted to ask this question directly before we wrap up. And how do you think your experience going through the forest bathing experience, as learning about it, then also facilitating for others, how do you think that that has affected you, and how does that really affected you and pulling that you into your corporate job now? How are you different? How are you bringing that to work?
Yeah, that is a big one. Um, First, I want to say, in terms of how it's impacted me, just in general, I am so much aware of my footprint and the impact that I have and the choices that I have, and my ability um, to to give back to nature. I think I said a little bit, the things that we love, we take care of. I also think it's our responsibility to take care and it's a gift. And I think we are in a relationship with nature. And so I've found through forest bathing, I'm finding more of that relationship with nature. One of my, I think it's particularly important to me in my forest bathing walks is that we're not just taking the benefits from nature, we're also giving back in some ways, right? Whether that's picking up trash before I lead a walk, or a simple invitation that I often offer people outside of forest bathing is, when you smell a flower, just imagine smelling that rose or the lilacs or whatever it might be. Take a moment just to breathe back on it, just a simple breath. And that's giving back, right? So I'm constantly thinking, as I'm receiving, how am I also giving back to nature? It's been something that's been very important to me. And I think it's also continued in to my work. How am I in relationship with people? How am I creating partnerships that are win-win for both of us? I've also been very fortunate in that folks are interested in what I'm doing, and so I've been able to provide a couple of I did a forest bathing experience for the company, for Onyx, and it was wonderful to meet folks who to find out, I guess, just to see a different side of folks, right? To see people able to connect and slow down and have a communal experience through forest bathing. Even though it's very unique, it's also very communal.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Kate, this has been such a pleasure. I think that we could probably talk for hours.
Yeah, thank
I
you,
know that
Jeanne.
we
It
could.
has been. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you
definitely.
so much. Thank you for sharing not only sharing about your forest bathing and how that has changed and it can affect others as well, but also your mission within Onyx and the great work that they're doing for us so that we can enjoy the world around us. So thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show was sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me, and if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.